Hello Thomas fans, and welcome to a brand new series where I review and share my thoughts on other shows and franchises from my childhood or teenage years. However, I'm struggling to think of a name for this series. Rob's Reviews? I don't know, but I'd appreciate it if people gave me some suggestions for a name, and feel free to share them in the comments. Anyway, let's get on with the video. Wacky Races. There are two reasons I chose to talk about this show first. The first reason is that today marks the 50th anniversary of the first ever episode, so happy birthday Wacky Races. The second reason is that this show has impacted me almost as much as Thomas, but I'll explain all that later. For those who've never seen or heard of the show before, Wacky Races is an American kids cartoon which aired between 1968 and 1970. It was developed by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, the two minds behind some of the most popular cartoons in history: Scooby-Doo, Tom and Jerry, the Smurfs, the Jetsons, the Yogi Bear Show, and the Flintstones. The premise of the show is the same for each episode, where 11 outrageously odd road vehicles race each other across a different American state. During the race, the drivers try to outdo each other using various gadgets, and quite often, this ends up helping them win the race. Although the show is very good at giving every character a bit of focus, the two main protagonists are actually the show's antagonists, Dick Dastardly and his dog Muttley. Dastardly is the driver of the Mean Machine, which is numbered 00, and despite his car being the fastest in the competition, Dastardly is obsessed with wiping other drivers out of the race, in all sorts of dastardly ways, either by making the drivers take a wrong turn, blowing up the ground to make it impossible to pass, or dressing up as a monster or a fictional character to scare or distract them. But as you'd expect in a cartoon, Dastardly's plans always fail, and it is often him that gets caught up in the traps, to the amusement of Muttley.
But how, you fiend?
Diabolically simple. I merely turned the exit sign around.
No matter what Dastardly tries, there is always something stopping him from ultimately winning the race. And I think this is what made most people tune in each week to see if Dastardly would finally take victory. The other competitors are just as memorable as Dastardly and Muttley, and could not be more different. We have drivers who are army soldiers, cavemen, lumberjacks, gangsters, professors, even ghosts. The writers were very successful at giving each character focus, so that we learn more about them. And if I had to pick a favourite out of these, it would definitely be the Ant Hill Mob. They had all sorts of clever tricks to outdo the opposition, such as dressing up as other people to fool the other drivers, or in some cases, policemen. Something else I find interesting is that we never find out why the police are always after them. You might find this disappointing, but it does kind of create characters that adults would like as well. Even though they're my favourites, I like all the characters in the show. They're fun, they're likeable, and they always make the races exciting for the younger generation. Not long after Wacky Races ended, two spin-off shows were aired: The Perils of Penelope Pitstop, which focused on the sole female character in the show, and Dastardly and Muttley in their flying machines. If I do get to see more of these two shows, I might review them on another occasion. So, if Wacky Races was last shown 30 years before I was even born, how did I first hear of it, I hear you ask? Well, it's quite a long story. Even though I created this channel in 2015, I began watching YouTube videos as early as 2007. One of the very first YouTubers I came across was Crane Productions 27, who you might remember as the voice of Peter Sam in Sodor Safety. If you haven't looked up his channel yet, he has done hundreds of parody clips with various TV shows, similar to what I've done with Thomas and Thunder's Burning, Newzoids, and On the Buses. When I was just starting to become interested in tugs, I came across a parody clip series with tugs, and this show I'd never heard of called Wacky Races. Straight away these characters caught my eyes, and I thought, I should keep an eye out for this show sometime. And not long after that, I visited my local library and found a copy of Volume 1 of Wacky Races. Yes, that's right, you could borrow DVDs from your library now. What a fantastic idea. You do have to pay for it though. Anyway, I paid my £1.40, took the DVD home, watched it, and just like that, I was hooked. In 2017, Wacky Races was rebooted, but to be honest, I'm not that interested in watching it. Half of the characters have gone, and it has barely anything to do with the races. There is literally no point in still calling it Wacky Races. I think the only thing I like about this reboot is the new theme, which is a massive improvement. but it still is much too short. If you want my opinion, they should have just settled with the original series, because even today, people are still watching and talking about this show. I'm going to end my review by answering the question, how much has Wacky Races impacted me? Well, as a kid growing up, I had dozens of toy cars to play with. I gave them names and wanted to make stories out of them. My love for cars grew even more when I saw Pixar's Cars in the cinema, which at the time was my favourite Pixar film. Although I think this is going to be an unpopular opinion, I actually preferred the racing scenes instead of the rather slow-paced radiator spring scenes, because of how intense they were. And when I saw Wacky Races, I finally became a racing fan. And instead of ignoring it, I'd watch motorsport all the time with my dad. And eventually, in 2015, I began driving go-karts. And nearly 3 years on, it's become way more than just a hobby. And it all started when I was introduced to this fantastic show that is Wacky Races. I cannot recommend this show enough.